Good morning. Today I'd like to do some book reviews. We're really just kind of talking about 3 books about hunting Hitler. The History Channel recently had a documentary. These guys are going to South America because they think that Hitler survived the war. Now, just from the start, I'm just going to say, I doubt it. It's sort of like Douglas Adams says in his books, everything's possible, just some things are highly improbable. I really doubt Adolf Hitler and Martin Bormann escaped Berlin, or that they even wanted to. But it's still an interesting conspiracy theory, so I have some books here to talk about it. Just wanted to say, though, these books are conspiracy theory histories, so if you're one of those history purists that get triggered by books that aren't necessarily history, you probably wouldn't like these at all. All right. First off, also, I'd like to say the idea is actually, there were Nazis that escaped. There was Josef Mengele. He escaped to Argentina, later got into Paraguay, later went to Brazil, where he drowned while swimming in the ocean in, 1979. So he lived fat and happy until 1979, the Doctor of Death. He's probably the most famous one. So it is possible. These guys did escape. There was Nicholas Klaus Barbie. He actually was helped, though, and that's actually addressed in some of these books. He was actually a beneficiary of the CIA because he knew things about the Marxists and the commies, so they let him go, basically. But then he was recaptured. His usefulness ran out, basically. And 1983, he was extradited to France, where he died in prison of cancer in September 1991. And another famous example is Adolf Eichmann. He was hiding out in Argentina when he was captured by the Israelis in 1960 and then hung high in 1962. And I've got my papers here because I wouldn't remember any of this stuff. There was other smaller ones. Erich Prebke. He was another one that he escaped. He was captured, put on trial. No. He actually, where did he die? Was he actually? He died in Rome in prison. Anyway, so that did happen. The high-ranking Nazis did escape. So it is possible, just highly improbable. The first book I want to talk about is called Hunting Hitler. It's by Jerome R. Corsi. And ironically, I don't think he was involved at all in the History Channel's series, which is called this. Maybe he was. Maybe they had to buy rights. I don't remember at this moment if he was one of those guys. It's a shorter book. It's not a bad read. It's got a lot of documentation and photographs. It's kind of, how do I put it? I always hate saying bad things about people. It's a little dry. It's a little short. It's a little bit. It's a fun read. It's kind of like he's trying too hard for it to be just a textbook history. His main thing is that Hitler, his deal was the CIA connection. That Hitler was probably helped to escape by the United States, or what we would now call the deep state. That is also in some of the others, but the main culprit for Corsi is our own agencies. It's not a bad book. It's, if you just need something to read one night, that's a good thing. The second one I want to talk about, this guy here, Grey Wolf, written by Simon Dunstan and Gerrard Williams. Gerrard Williams is actually involved in that History Channel series. So this is his book, and it's a big one. It's probably the most entertaining of the 3. It's well written, entertainingly written. He writes well. Now his main deal, this guy's main deal is more of the Illuminati kind of the deep state. Everything is connected. It isn't so much. It's sort of like, the Harry Potter world is kind of here and kind of exists in parallel to our own, but neither the twain shall meet. Well, that's the idea here, is that there's that deep state that's kind of like running the world like a big giant role-playing game. And wars and countries and borders don't really matter to them because they're kind of up here and the thing is just a map, and they really don't, they're playing war games with each other, and they really don't care who wins or loses all that much because they're going to be in charge in the end anyway. Well, his deal is he places most of the onus on deep state bankers, which basically were playing both sides of World War II, and the Catholic Church. Because he's arguing that the Catholic Church helped, and they did. One of these guys in here was helped, as it was Prepka. There were elements inside the Catholic Church at the time that were pro-Nazi. To give them their due, it wasn't so much because they were like rah, Heil the Fuhrer. It was mainly because in those days, the big enemy of the Catholic Church was communism. And the Nazis were supposedly against communism. And so is the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Also, unfortunately, in those days, most all Europeans had some low level of anti-Semitism. And that's another thing, too, that kind of didn't really set the alarm bells off for him about the Nazis. That backing these guys, they were totally apeshit about killing Jews is probably not a good idea, especially in hindsight. But let's get back to the book. It's well written. It's, how big is it? 300 pages long. His is the one, there was a sort of a mockumentary, also called Grey Wolf. It's based on this book. The mockumentary that portrays Hitler's escape. And I had a lot of problems with that one. For instance, Hitler is portrayed as enjoying boating. He hated the water. I mean, he actually had that saying that, on land I am a hero, at sea I am a coward. He hated the water. He would have never gone out on a boat. Oh, another thing is, they portray the after-war Hitler enjoying exercise. Hitler was a hikikomori. He was a shut-in. He hated physical exercise. When he used to walk down at Birchwood Garden down the hill to the tea shop, he'd make him drive him back, probably about 100 feet, because it was uphill. He hated exercise. There's no way he would want... one thing, in the History Channel's series, they talk about Hitler's survival going to a ballet where basically hobnob with the hobnobs. That sounds more like something he might have done, because he did indeed say at one point, oh, I can't wait for this war is over. After the war, I'm going to go hang out in art galleries all the time. I mean, one of the weird things he said, because everybody knows that he didn't want the war to ever end. So yeah, this is a good one. This is basically, if you want to read Hunting Hitler, Hitler Escaped, Conspiracy, this is the book to get. The last one I'm going to talk about, Hitler in Argentina. Give this one a skip. It's written by Harry Cooper. I'm sure that they did a good job, I guess. It's poorly formatted. It looks like a self-published book. I'm not even quite sure what his point was. It's sort of like, it's sort of like in the middle of these two. He was just kind of, I'm not even sure. It's very confusing, all over the place. I can't recommend it. It's just a little bit too... It looks like somebody dumped a whole lot of stuff into a Microsoft Word document and then printed it out without even like formatting it. I don't know. I don't see very many spelling mistakes and stuff like that. So at least I've seen those. where there was a World War II book I got. It was supposedly, and it was not even spelled correctly. They do talk about some of the other guys that I just talked about, though. Here's Eric Prepka. They talk about him. So, I mean, maybe it would be a good worth a read to get more of a background on who escaped. But like I say, it's all over the place. And interviews are printed out instead of summarized. And it's just like someone took a whole bunch of supporting documentation and just printed it out. I guess, you know, if you've got the other two and you want the whole collection, buy it. But if you need to save money or want something else, give it a skip. Anyway, that's all I have for you today on Did Hitler Escape? Which I don't think he did. I'm sorry. It looks like he did blow his brains out in the bunker. And actually, there was that psychological profile done on him that said that he would probably do just that. As for Martin Bormann, that's interesting. Of course, in the late 80s, early 90s, they found those remains that were supposedly his, and they did manage to get a DNA match to a distant relative. But of course, these guys say but there was red mud on the remains that can only be found in Argentina. And so what happened is he died in Argentina, and then they buried him in Berlin under some concrete that has been there for 40 years somehow. And so when they tore up this old building, they found his remains. But they were not in situ when the 1950s when this was built. It was planted in there to be found later on. Yeah, it's a good read. I like conspiracy theories. I like monster stories, but I always try to pull back to try to say, well, this is fun, but it might not be all that truth. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you watch me more, and I really appreciate the time you put into listening to me babble. Thank you very much. Have a good day.